Sorry, I needed to crack this open first. Liquid Death, sponsor us. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Pigskins and Pinfalls. I'm Dick Burns here with Bobby Boomerang. We're here to talk everything from Rock's verbal deliveries to so many injuries.
That's right, Dick. We're here to talk everything from the returning Brahma Bull to week 2 in full. As always, every little bit of support helps keep this show running, so make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like on the video, leave your comment down below, but most importantly, leave your expectations out the door.
Does that count as being close enough to be in a match? No, because I actually mentioned all the injuries that we had.
Yeah,
That's really like that was the story of week 2. Was there were two major stories out of the NFL this week, and that was everybody getting hurt and holy shit, who saw that coming?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty solid way to put that. I think first we're just going to get into game reviews, but I do want to talk at the end of all of it a little bit about the injuries, specifically to one position that we will get to.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll be talking about it all the way through these game reviews. So you had the Thursday night game, Eagles defeating the Vikings.
I did. So Philadelphia Eagles defeated the Minnesota Vikings 34-28. The first thing about this game is the game was not as close as that score will lead you to believe. Philly had this game in control the entire way. There was really not very much threat of Minnesota taking over them. And it's because of something I mentioned last week covering Minnesota. Their turnovers cost them the game for the past 2 weeks. Jay Jettas fumbled into his end zone, which results in a touchback. It sparked some outrage with the fans, mostly on Twitter. But personally, I like the rule. I think if you fumble out of the end zone, it should be a touchback and puts that much more emphasis on ball security. But had he scored that touchdown going into half and then Minnesota getting the ball at the start of the third quarter, it could have been a different game. But again, turnovers really killed Minnesota. DeAndre Swift for the Eagles, non-existent in week 1, had himself a career fucking night. 175 yards and a touchdown in his first regular season game back in his home state. I think he's from the Philly area, but I don't think he is a Philadelphian. Justin Jefferson continues to prove why he was the number 1 overall pick for fantasy football in so many people's leagues. In only 52 career games, he has already surpassed 5,000 receiving yards. That is more than any Bears player's career.
Well, and Bears receivers.
Yeah, exactly. And at this point, we can insert any Kirk Cousins primetime jokes as you would like. Because we all know that Kirk Cousins only plays well right after church lets out on Sundays.
When the only time he plays well is when he has the Holy Spirit inside of him.
Keep an eye on these Minnesota wide receivers. Addison, KJ Osborne, and Justin Jefferson might be the best 3-headed wide receiver attack. I would still say Miami's the best 2-headed wide receiver attack with Hill and Waddle, but keep an eye on these guys out of Minnesota.
Who's in Miami slot? Who starts at the 3?
Is it Braxton Berrios?
Is it Braxton Berrios? Ew.
Might be.
Then yeah, they're definitely a 2-headed. Moving on to the Falcons defeating the Packers 25-24, our first of the early games. Again, this is why I was saying that there's a lot of surprises out of this week because who could have predicted the Atlanta Falcons beating the Packers? No Aaron Jones, so Green Bay had to rely a lot more on Jordan Love since that handcuff to AJ Dillon didn't pan out at all whatsoever. I got 7 points out of him this week. That was trash. Come on now. Love was able to put up 3 touchdowns with only 151 yards. But more importantly out of Green Bay, Quay Walker is quickly becoming the standout on the Packers defense. A whopping 17 tackles in this game. 17. He's making a push for DPOY, the way it looks right now. Speaking of monster games, Bijan put up another 172 yards from scrimmage. He's on pace right now to put up almost 2,200 yards in the season. Just give him the Offensive Rookie of the Year award right now. Just go ahead and let him have it. Ritter had both a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown, but he still looks like there's a lot of room for improvement. He also threw his first career interception. Regardless, his performance was good enough to lead the Falcons into field goal range with 2 minutes to spare, giving Younghoe Koo an opportunity to win the game, get the game-winning field goal in the closing moments of the fourth. Koo is quickly becoming one of my favorite kickers in the league.
Yes.
I don't know.
Agreed.
He's insanely accurate. He doesn't miss often, and he can drill it from far away. He is super reliable. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a long career with the Falcons. Green Bay blew a 24-12 lead in this game, so don't be surprised if people start putting Love under a microscope and examining if he can close out games like we have been seeing with pretty much any quarterback that couldn't finish out a game this season so far. And Atlanta is now somehow 2-0, and don't look now, but the NFC South, who everyone was writing off this season, is suddenly competitive.
So there's a few things that stand out there. One, don't you dare say that anybody is winning Defensive Player of the Year other than number 11 for the Dallas Cowboys. Because trust me, I'll get to that.
When number 11 puts up 17 tackles in a game, then we can talk.
He is on... I'm not going to start my Cowboys rant now.
You can do it later. You can do it later. We'll get there.
Highlight of last week. But never mind. I agree with you about Young Wei Koo. I think he has the makings to be a great longevical, I don't know if that's a word,
it is now.
Kicker. And it is now. And again, I said it last year. I saw a lot of people fucking saying that Jordan Love was the man, and this, that, and the third. And I even said, like, I'm not sold yet on it. I think he should be under that microscope. Man, every quarterback is. Every quarterback is.
That's fair. That's fair.
Like, I have a whole theory about had Dak Prescott had the game Josh Allen had in week 1, the fucking talking heads would have ate him alive. But since it was Josh Allen, I got swept under the rug. It's a whole thing. That brings us to the Buffalo Bills defeating the Las Vegas Raiders 38-10. Not a lot to say about this game. Buffalo absolutely dominated all aspects of the game.
They let out all the frustration that they had from losing to the Jets last week on the Raiders.
Oh, absolutely. Vegas had an early touchdown, and then they couldn't do shit after that. I believe at one point the score was 7-0 Vegas, and then from there, obviously the final being 38-10 tells you everything you need to know. Buffalo held the ball for over 40 minutes to Vegas only having 19 minutes of time of possession. That's a huge, huge, huge stat. Buffalo also held Josh Jacobs to -2 yards.
Total?
Leading rusher. Total. -2 yards. Our leading rusher from last year. He had negative yardage after that Buffalo defense just swarmed all over him. That's pretty much it about the game. Jimmy G had a very middle-of-the-road, mediocre game. A couple picks, like it just wasn't great. But the story continues, though, because Wednesday, before the game on Wednesday, a hot mic had picked up a reporter questioning Stephon Diggs' character and making some not-so-nice comments about it, about him, rather. Stephon Diggs then reminded people that under the helmet, he's still a human just like the rest of us. And, like, I think it's important to note that because obviously, we talk shit if a player gets 0 points in fantasy. And obviously, we do this and that. And, like, that's kind of natural when it comes to being a fan. But at the end of the day, these are human beings just like you and me or anybody watching this. So, like, treat them with some respect.
And especially, there shouldn't be, like, granted, there are enough character issues in the NFL as it is. Stephon Diggs is far from that. So to be badgering him of all people, especially with the offseason that he had, with everyone highlighting the suspected frustration that everyone had, that everyone was assuming that he had about being in Buffalo.
Him not reporting to camp.
And, like, him not being able, like, there were all the rumors about, no, he's looking for a trade. He wants out of there. He's done with Buffalo. He's over it. And it's just like, guys, like, and then he was just like, man, all of that's just like, it's all smoke. It ain't.
Right.
It ain't
and, like, I get it, man. I get it sometimes, and even you and I are guilty of it. I know that we are. Like, the speculation, right? Speculation can run rampant, especially when you do something like you and I do here on this show. But, like, at the end of the day, these guys are still humans. But this did lead to Trayvon Diggs, Stephon Diggs' brother, notable cornerback for the Cowboys, tweeting his brother saying, "We got to get you out there. We got to get you a safe place. I know a spot." So Trayvon Diggs still recruiting his brother to come down to Dallas, man. I love it.
Oh my God, if it happens, I know you want it. I know you want it, but it's not gonna happen.
What? Diggs, Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Tony Pop.
Good luck trying to pay them all.
I don't want to talk about that.
Moving on, the Indianapolis Colts defeated the Houston Texans 31-20. The first battle of rookie quarterbacks this season, and it was a clear answer which was the better of the two. Now, I have long on this show and off this show compared Anthony Richardson to Cam Newton. We were texting each other during this game, and we were like, holy shit, this is a little bit too accurate. Big Tony rips off 2 rushing touchdowns in the first half. Then he gets hit and suffers a suspected concussion after only 10 passing attempts and leaves the game.
Time out. Did you just call him Big Tony?
Yes.
Oh, that's the nickname. That's
been the nickname. You hadn't heard that yet?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, that's what people started calling him. It was Big Tony.
Oh, Big Tony. I love that. Continue, sir.
Yeah.
Continue, sir.
So, yeah, he goes out after only 10 passing attempts, leaves the game, ends up having to hand the game over to Gardner Minshew, who honestly, coming in halfway through the game, didn't put that bad of stats up. But
I love Minshew Mania.
It's Minshew. I mean, it's hairy Kirk Cousins.
It's hippie
Kirk Cousins. There we go. Yeah, I like that better. Well, with one injury taking a player out, though, there was also a return to the lineup for Zach Moss. Of course, he was the standout running back that was traded from Buffalo to Indianapolis in exchange for Nyheim Hines in the offseason. He broke his arm back in July during training camp and was forced to miss 6 weeks of action. We just got done talking about how quickly Brian Danielson came back from his arm break, how arm breaks are one of the most frequent bones to break, and how quickly it is to heal. So seeing Zach Moss back out on the field already at week 2, it's pretty impressive, especially when they already have their running back woes. He parlayed that into over 100 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown, which kind of solves that issue of who's going to run the backfield while Jonathan Taylor sits out on the PUP that we were discussing last week. On the other side of the ball, Stroud had a busy day. A lot of the good, a lot of the bad. He threw for 384 yards. So, I made my jokes about Anthony Richardson, but Stroud put out. Like
Stroud can sling the rock, that's for sure.
I had 2 touchdowns in there. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge the good with the bad. He was sacked 6 times, fumbled twice. He lost one of those, and he showed very poor decision-making on a lot of dropbacks. 6 sacks is bad, but there were definitely moments where the blame landed on Stroud. He definitely hung out in the pocket a little bit too much. There was one play in particular where I saw that he had a wide-open lane into the end zone. Like, not necessarily into the end zone. I can't remember how far up the field they were at the time, but it was just a wide open lane, and he was like zigzagging all around still behind the line of scrimmage. Just like, dude, you could have just taken the lane right there. What are you doing? Just run. But he ended up just throwing it away. It doesn't really matter though, because that drive ended up finding Nico Collins in the back of the end zone. Nico Collins having a monster game as well. Not only did he have that touchdown, but 146 yards. Really putting his name like at the top of the list right now for like who's going to be taking over that receiving core in Houston. Shouts out also to Tank Dell getting his first career touchdown. I know there was the big discussion, of course, about how Stroud and Dell had asked for each other in the draft. They were like, hey, you go pick up my boy Tank while you're at it. And they did in the second round. And we'll have to see how well that develops. I mean, they look like they're forming a little bit of a good rapport already. But I think Dell's got to do a little bit more work in the receiving column first before we can start saying, yeah, this is a star pairing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, nobody's a star after 2 games. I don't care who you are. I think it's starting to become clear who it's also week 2, so let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But it is starting to look like Anthony Richardson was probably the best decision to go with out of the 3 rookies. Nico Collins, he does this, man. He normally has a breakout game or 2, but then the rest of the season he's kind of mediocre or falls flat. So I'd like to see Nico Collins pick it up and do that over the course of a season.
He has been very boomer bust. I will agree with that.
Yeah, and the Colts, man, like they might have something here.
They're probably not gonna be in contention this year.
I don't think so.
They're still putting a lot of the pieces together, and especially this whole Jonathan Taylor situation, putting them back a little bit. But I think Indy could be onto something here. And not to mention, I know this was still like a rough loss for the Texans. There's still some promise there.
Absolutely.
There's still a little bit of promise.
Yeah, and again, similar to the Colts, man. I don't think the Texans have promise this year, but I think they're starting to get the puzzle put together.
Let's not forget also, this is D'Amico Ryans in his first head coaching gig too, and that has a lot to do with it as well.
Right, it's learning curves. Rookie quarterback, rookie coach. That's a heavy burden to carry for anybody. So that leads us to the Baltimore Ravens defeating the Cincinnati Bengals 27-24. Again, scores kind of deceptive here, in my opinion. Baltimore was in control most of the game, but they didn't have J.K. Dobbins, so no J.K. Dobbins, no problem. Baltimore still had a great rushing attack with Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and Lamar. Lamar's legs are great. We talked about it last week. Bengals ended up getting their first punt return touchdown since Pac-Man Jones returned one back in 2012. So, 11 years between punt return touchdowns, that's a long time.
Shouts out Pac-Man.
Yeah, well, he's going through it. OBJ left with an injury in, I believe, the third quarter, and Joe Burr looks like he might have aggravated his calf again from preseason. So, not great for this Cincinnati offense that was so high-powered last year. This is back-to-back years where the Bengals started 0-2. But again, we saw what they did last year after the 0-2 start. They turned it around, so I'm not panicking just yet. But I think they have more question marks this year than they did last year. Baltimore played really good team football. They just looked like the better team. Like, they looked like they were poised out there. They looked like they were a collective unit, whereas the Bengals did not. It did not feel that way for Cincinnati. And then a scary thing about Baltimore's offense, man, is that they have big playability. I believe Lamar hit Zay Flowers for a 52. It was either 52 or 62-yard bomb. But then they can also drive down the football field if they have to. Their opening drive went 70 plays and took over 8 minutes off the clock. That's good ball management there. So Ravens are good. The Ravens are good. No questions about that. I still am not ready to quite give up on Cincinnati.
I'm not ready to give up on them either, but they're definitely this is not the team that we saw last year. There's definitely there's something the magic is gone. There's something missing there, and they need to refine what that is.
There's some Dwayne Johnson eyebrow raises. That's for sure.
Yeah. Moving on to the Chiefs versus the Jaguars. The Chiefs winning.
Who would have thought this game was going to be under 30 points, Dick?
Right? Who saw that one? Not to mention the fact that this was a very messy game. There's no better word I can think of than messy. Neither team could hold on to the ball. Kansas City had 4 fumbles. Jacksonville had 3. Kansas City got penalized 12 different times for, I think it was over 70 yards. I think. I can't remember. I know it was a lot. The returns of both Chris Jones and Travis Kelce were certainly felt this week. Kelce got a late game touchdown. Jones got a sack and a half. Fantasy concerns were expressed last week for Pacheco, but they are clearing up after a 70-yard game on only 12 rushes. The verdict's still out on Tony. He did catch he didn't get but 35 yards, but he was targeted 5 times and he actually caught all 5 of those passes this time. So at least he's catching balls, but he's not making any progression. So again, we still got a microscope on Tony. Trevor Lawrence had a game to forget, struggling to find the end zone, eating 4 sacks, fumbled twice. He was able to assist in a 110-yard day for Christian Kirk, who attempted a flea flicker in the second that went for a negative yard. Zay Jones nearly had another catch of the year candidate, but it got called back because he didn't have both feet in the end zone. And that was, honestly, it was a rough one too, but he just could not get that second one down. Honestly, both teams are now at 1-1, and somehow it just feels appropriate. Like, they both feel like 1-1 teams right now.
Yeah, dude. You were talking about with the Bengals saying the magic is gone. It might be gone or diminishing for the Chiefs. Pat Mahomes threw another interception in this game. He's currently on pace for 17 interceptions on the season. Not good. And Zay Jones, man, I think he's going to be – I will start him for the rest of the – even though he got me 0 points this week, he's good at football. That dude is good at football. Trevor Lawrence, man, I'm not too worried about him still having some issues, dude. He's only a third-year quarterback.
Not to mention, again, this is the Kansas City defense he was up against.
Correct. So, and one of those years, Urban Meyer was his head coach. So, that's like a wash.
We don't count the Urban Meyer year.
Exactly. So, Trevor Lawrence, I think, is going to be the future. Not the future, but he's going to be one of those guys that kind of similar to Tony Romo, right? Played in an era of Peyton, of Big Ben, of Drew Brees, of Tom Brady. You know, just so happens that Trevor Lawrence is in the league right now with, you know, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. Like he's within. There's some big name guys in the league right now.
I think that where he benefits on that aspect is the fact that he's in a division that is
can win for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
he could win that division for the next 10 years.
Run away without. Actually, no, you can't even say 10 years anymore. Now that if we get as significant of development at Big Tony as we've been talking about, then they're going to be competing with Indianapolis for years to come. So it's not as easy of a walk in the park anymore.
They are in an easier division. I agree. That will bring us to. I was not expecting that. The Seattle Seahawks defeating the Detroit Lions 37-31 in overtime.
I would like to start before you get into this. I would like to retract my statement about the Seattle. Actually, no. My statement remains. Seattle is still regressing to the middle just because they got to win this week.
No, sir. No, sir. It is not Seattle regressing to the middle. You know what it is? Detroit regressing to where they belong. People have been too hyped on Detroit. People have been too high on Detroit. It's not warranted. They shouldn't be that high on Detroit. It's what have you done for me lately, league? And Detroit ain't done shit in 30 years.
I'd like to hear your defense on this because this was a game that was won in overtime.
My defense on this, the Detroit Lions fucked up two of the greatest football players of all time's careers, Barry Sanders and Megatron.
We're talking about this game. We're talking about this game.
This game. Oh, well, let me get there. I thought you were talking about Detroit in the last 30 years.
No.
Let me calm back down. I apologize. I'm sorry, Dick. Both quarterbacks in this game did look good. They both threw for over 300 yards, which is not easy in the NFL, but somehow Jared Goff found a way to do it. Another really surprising stat, Jared Goff threw his first interception since week 9 of last year. Both defenses kind of struggled to shut down either of the offenses, but the difference maker, and I'm going to say it 100 times this season, is turnovers. Seattle was able to force 3 turnovers. Detroit was only able to force 1. It was very much a back and forth game, but the Seahawks were able to ultimately pull it off in overtime. Kenneth Walker, who has a great nickname, K9.
Has that seriously been the first time you ever heard K9 too?
No, it's just great, and I like pointing out that it's great.
All right, that's fair.
He had 2 touchdowns on the game. Looking like, you know, Seattle's got their answer at running back. They've got some good receivers in DK and Lockett. I think that their quarterback is going to hold them back moving forward. And I think Detroit being Detroit is going to hold them back.
I saw this as a regression to the mean of the Lions' defense. That was the big issue last year, was the fact that their defense just could not close things out. That was what their big crux was last year, was that there were still too many teams that would outscore them despite the fact they were putting up the points. This is feeling like 2022 Lions because they're not stopping these high-scoring offenses, which having the Seahawks as your high-scoring offense, again, something you don't expect, but I mean, we said last week that we were expecting Geno Smith to regress back to the mean. This was him still showing a lot of good flashes. This is still showing why he was worth like re-signing. Tyler Lockett with the walk-off on this one in overtime, though. I mean, in all fairness, it is Tyler Lockett, so him getting a walk-off touchdown in overtime, like, not surprising.
DK Metcalf took a nasty fucking hit to the ribs, bro. Did you see that?
No, I missed it.
Oh my God, DK, he was either running with the ball or going for a ball right at the end zone. And bro, they made the 2 Lions defenders made a DK Metcalf sandwich and both helmets into both sides of his ribs. Ooh. It was nasty. They took him into the locker room. I'm assuming they shot him up with some Toradol, and then they brought him right back onto the field, and he played the rest of the game.
Sounds about right. Moving on, the Buccaneers defeating the Bears 27-17. Baker's actually working out in Tampa Bay. Who would have thought?
Not me.
I mean, this could mean good things for the Bucks and bad things for the rest of the NFC South. In reality, though, this game was all about one person and one person only, and that was Mike Evans, putting up 171 yards and a touchdown on 6 catches. Rashad White also having a game, putting up over 100 yards from scrimmage and a rushing touchdown. The Tampa offense just looked good all around compared to a Bears offense that allowed 6 sacks, 2 fumbles, and well, they recovered both of those fumbles still, and then 2 interceptions, one of which was returned to the house to seal the game off in the 4th. We can continue to blame the Bears O-line all we want, but at some point, we need Justin Fields to face the music. He was holding on to the ball far too often. He missed open shots. He was sitting in the pocket while it was collapsing. The Chicago does not have a rush game right now, so this has to be Fields. Khalil Herbert did not put up that many yards, and everybody that was behind him, even less. Like, I think Herbert led the team with, I want to say, like 40-something yards. I don't have it pulled up. I didn't write it down. But it was a embarrassingly low number of rushing yards for the entire team.
An embarrassing low number?
Get out. You're fired. DJ Moore was able to put up 100-plus yards receiving. Chase Claypool got his number called for a touchdown for the first time in Chicago. This wasn't enough to propel the Bears to a win. Another highlight, though, for Tremaine Edmonds, though. 16 tackles in this game. I think he was second only to the 17 that Quay Walker put up. The Bucs are now 2-0 as well. What is the NFC South this year?
Who fucking knows, man? We were all expecting dumpster fire.
We were expecting a dumpster fire, and now we've got
Baker dropping dimes, yeah. So Mike Evans continuing to make our entire fantasy football league look stupid for letting him fall as late as he did.
I know, right?
Baker Mayfield making us look stupid for Mike Evans falling as far as he did. Chase Claypool, man, I'm glad he got into the end zone because there were some reports last week that came out saying that people were questioning his effort, saying that he wasn't putting it all in that he should have been doing. They showed like video evidence of him like blatantly whiffing on a run block where the run was going to the other side of the field where he just didn't even try. So good for him for getting involved. DJ Moore getting a touchdown. I still don't think he's a true number 1 wide receiver, but when you're the Giants, you're the Giants, right? Bears. I was reading. When you're the Bears, you're the Bears. It is what it is.
The Titans defeating the Chargers 27-24 in yet another who saw that coming. Let's start with the good in this game. Derrick Henry looked like prime Derrick Henry. 80 yards and a goal line touchdown. Man still knows how to push his way through a crowd.
He looked like King Henry.
Yeah, looked like King Henry there. Neither team had a turnover, which is good. Keenan Allen had a day, put up 111 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Treylon Burks also had a day, he had a beautiful 70-yard gain that set up the Henry touchdown. And now we have to cover all the bad in this. So, first off, no Austin Eckler meant that the Los Angeles rushing attack was practically non-existent. You keep trying to trade me Josh Kelly. I don't want him. It's Eckler or nothing in that backfield, okay? Both teams...
Eckler for Diggs.
What's that?
Eckler for Diggs.
I don't have Diggs. Do I?
I think you do.
Do I? I don't remember.
We'll take this discussion off air.
Yeah, we'll take this discussion off air. Both teams allowed multiple costly sacks that killed productivity. Tannehill threw for 246 yards. Half of those yards came on 2 key catches. Everything else was just a check down for a handful. Check down Charlie. Right back again. This game came down to a field goal from Dicker the kicker to send it into overtime, where the Chargers showed off their grand ability to once again to choke it all at the end. Nick Folk, the game winner, as the sky opened up out of nowhere and dumped rain on everybody. Right, it was so random at the end of that game. It was just like, hey, we know this is overtime and we're going for the game-winning kick, but we're just gonna go ahead and dump like a shit ton of rain on you out of nowhere.
Here's a monsoon for you.
Right. This gave Tennessee their first win since last November. That's the other thing about this too. They were on that 9-game skid. Dating back to last November. The skid that cost them the AFC South last season. I still got love for my adopted team, but Chargers are still gonna Charger. Hashtag just bolt things.
Yeah, dude. What's absolutely absurd is that in the first 2 weeks of the season, the Chargers have scored 58 points and had 0 turnovers, but they are somehow 0-2. And this reminds me of, I don't know, maybe a decade or so ago when the Chargers had the number 1 offense and the number 1 defense and did shit all with it.
That was a very heartbreaking year because that was the year that I was home in San Diego watching the playoffs, and we were all sitting there that first week. We were like, we're the number 1 team. We're the number 1 team. And we're all sitting here having a pool party at a friend's house after church one day, and we just watch as the Chargers give it all up on the first week of on the first game of the divisionals.
Yeah, so again, Chargers gonna Charger. They need something to break that mojo that they got going on.
Just bolt things.
Leading into a very unexpected but very exciting game.
Yeah, unexpectedly exciting, but the ending is still what I expected. The Giants defeating the Cardinals 31-28. Congratulations, New York. You managed to make both Josh Dobbs and James Conner look good. Fun stat from ESPN this weekend. The Giants started this season with 60 points scored against them before Daniel Jones ran for a goal line touchdown in the third. This is the third all-time worst opening to a season. I went back and I did the math on this. Here were his stats, because I couldn't find the breakdown at it. So I had to like manually go in and count like the play-by-play. This was Daniel Jones' stats at halftime. He was 9 for 17 on passing for 62 yards, an interception, 2 sacks for -6 yards, and 1 yard of rushing. That was your entire passing attack for the first half of that game.
Trash Can Dan.
Trash Can Dan. If this were any other team other than the Cards, this was no coming back.
Correct.
Rookie wide receiver Jalen Hyatt emerged as a great deep threat for Jones, catching 2 passes for 89 yards to help start this offense. I also did say at the beginning of the season, I still like Jaron Waller in this scheme. I think it's still very friendly for him with where he is. And he did put up a respectable 6 catches for 76 yards in this comeback. Now, let's take a moment to congratulate the Cards for what went right for them here. Josh Dobbs looked like a monster on his first rushing touchdown in his career. He scrambles out of the pocket from outside of it was a 23-yard scramble from outside of the red zone, and right as he gets to the goal line, he trucks through the safety and just makes him look silly. Congratulations, Josh Dobbs. You actually looked good there. Maybe we might have to put a little bit more respect on your name. James Conner putting up 106 yards on 23 carries, looked every bit like the 2021 James Conner we had in Arizona. That actually made us wonder maybe if we had something back from his time in Pittsburgh. I don't have faith on that sticking around, but we'll see how long it goes. Jalen Thompson, the interception he had, honestly, it was a tip pass. He popped it, he caught it at just the right timing, ran it back in. It was honestly, it was perfectly done. It was just a perfectly caught interception from a tip pass. This was all good. And then at the same time, though, this is the Arizona Cardinals, and the tank must continue, because how else can you explain them dominating the game for 2.5 quarters, and then midway through the third, out of nowhere, the secondary coverage just disappears. There was like it was like they were literally like leaving open pockets for all the different receivers for the Giants, and that was the only way that they were really driving the ball up the field. The Giants defense didn't even force Arizona into a 3-and-out situation until the fourth quarter, and it feels like they may have given that one up. Saquon came alive for 83 yards and a pair of touchdowns, but he's got ankles made out of Swiss cheese, and he's going to miss the next 3 weeks with what's believed to be a sprained ankle. This is why he didn't get the payday that he was looking for. At the end of the day, though, the Cardinals end up giving up a 21-point lead, and the Giants come from behind and win this game off a Grand Gano field goal with 19 seconds left, which, after his missing concerns last week, good on him for actually making this one.
Yeah, and, trash versus trash. Was not expecting them to put up almost 60 points of, offensive machinery, but somehow they did, and I guess that's just because, just like Saquon's ankles, both defenses are made of Swiss cheese and there's holes everywhere. This is going to be an ugly season if you're a Cardinals fan, But I think it's going to be an uglier season if you're a Giants fan because of all the expectations y'all had coming into this year, and you're about to be humbled real fucking quick.
I think that those expectations have already been like shattered. So, and not in a good way.
When you lose 40-0 to the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football in front of the entire nation, yeah, dreams are going to crumble. Speaking of dreams crumbling, the 49ers defeated the Rams 30-23.
So I said it before and I'll say it again. Brock Purdy will succeed in this league simply because he is a system quarterback. He is a good quarterback in a system designed for system quarterbacks.
Tom Brady.
Exactly. Despite he had very pedestrian numbers, but he was still making beautiful passes for big yardage, snagged a goal line rushing touchdown. Stafford, despite an ugly stat line, also played really well in this game. To call back to our first series of dick pics from last week, we took the entire Rams offense first, and all three of them showed out. Puka Nacua, 15 catches.
That's my dog.
Did you pick him up?
I did.
I thought so. Puka Nacua picking up 15 catches for 147 yards. Tutu Atwell, 7 catches for another 77. Kyron Williams with a total 100 combined yards from scrimmage and a pair of touchdowns. You know who wasn't part of that offense, though? Let me say it. Let me hear you say it. Let me hear you say it.
Cam Akers.
Cam Akers was a healthy inactive this week. Cam Akers, the man that you swore up and down by during the preseason, was a healthy scratch. Not to mention...
Swing big, miss big.
Not to mention that he's now also being shopped out for a trade, which, as many injuries as there were at the running back position this week, he might actually get something out of this.
He might.
Just out of necessity.
Keep an eye on Leonard Fournette.
I hear the Giants need a running back after losing Saquon.
Yeah, so does another team.
Oh, there's a couple teams. There's a couple teams. We'll get to that.
Leonard Fournette.
Christian McCaffrey still does Christian McCaffrey things.
Shocker.
He put up the first touchdown. He stormed his way through everybody to get the first touchdown. He made everybody look silly. The real deciding factor of this game was the San Francisco defense, who managed to score a costly sack and 2 big interceptions on Stafford and end his streak of 163 throws without an interception. These weren't so much Stafford being a bad passer than it was the defense making great plays. Stafford's stat line looked way worse than he actually played. This was the defense making plays all over this field. By the end of the fourth, a solid rally from the Rams wasn't enough to get past the Niners defense. They were able to add a Pyrrhic field goal right at the end as time expired to end the game 30-23. The Niners are still to beat the team to beat in the West, but the Rams continue to make a statement for a wild card push.
Do you know why they kicked that field goal as time expired to lose by 7 instead of lose by 10?
Pretty sure it was because of them testing the kicker, wasn't it?
Oh, I'm sure that's the reason the team will give you. Do you know what the line for this game was?
What was it? 8?
7.
Was it 7?
Now it's a push.
Oh, fuck. That's just a...
Yo. Puka Nacua is that dude. When Cooper Kupp comes back, I might just start both of them.
That's because right. You have Cooper Kupp, too.
I do have Cooper Kupp. But I might start Puka and Koopa.
Puka and Koopa. There we go.
The Koopa Troopas. So,
the Koopa
but
Puka
this Rams... Huh?
The Koopa Puka Troopas?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. But this Rams offense, man, is definitely doing a lot better than we thought they were. We thought for sure that the Rams were going to have another. We thought that the Rams made a deal with the devil, sold their soul to get their Super Bowl win, and then they were going to go back to mediocrity. They're not going down without a fight. Obviously, last year didn't go their way, but
last year they were also suffering from a lot of injuries, which
they took
expected.
it to,
losing Stafford for the season really hurt them.
I agree. But, they took it to a tough 49ers team.
They really did. They did keep it relatively close.
Mm-hmm. Can I go now?
It's your turn. Go ahead. Get it out your system. Let's hear this week's promo.
So, Just like last week, I am wearing my vintage Dallas Cowboys shirt. I am wearing my Cowboys hat. I'm even wearing Dallas Cowboys basketball shorts.
Don't you dare wiggle your dick in front of the screen again.
I'm thinking about it.
Don't do it.
I'm thinking about it.
Don't you do
And
it.
the reason I'm thinking about it, the reason it is crossing my mind is because the New York Jets came down to Arlington, Texas, into Jera's World, AT&T Stadium, in front of a sold-out.
I'm waiting.
The Cowboys.
You wanted
Cowboys
to roll there. You ruined it.
I couldn't keep together. The Cowboys absolutely fucking dominated the New York Jets, just like we did the New York Giants. If you are a football fan and you live in the greater New York area or New Jersey, you fucking suck. Both your teams are trash. You don't deserve any nice things, and that's why Dallas outscored the two fucking New York football programs 70-10. We are averaging 35 points a game while holding teams to 5 points. And honestly, if it wasn't for one big fucking play, the Jets would have lost this game 30-3. Dallas was in control this entire time. Our defense was stellar. Micah Parsons getting sacks yet again. Osa Odigizua getting sacks yet again. 3 interceptions, a fumble recovery picked up by the number 11 Micah Parsons. He played his football at Penn State College. He swapped the blue and white for the navy and silver, and now he is in Dallas, and he will be winning Defensive Player of the Year. It's not even gonna be close. You can have your 17 tackles, but when a man can disrupt an entire game on the defensive side of the ball the way that number 11 can, there are not very many people who can do that. Dallas and everybody last week was, oh, your offense didn't do anything. Dak only threw for 140 yards. What did he do this week? Well, let me tell you what he did this week. He went 31 for 38 for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. Take that, all you haters. He was sedated for 11 hours to get a full leg sleeve tattoo. Kind of a bitch move in my opinion, but it did not matter because we completely have decimated our competition. And after what the Rams did to the 49ers and showed their weaknesses, Dallas is the number 1 team in the NFC as we sit here today in our Lord year of 2023.
All right, so let's put some actual stats to these because
I just gave you stats. 3 interceptions, 6 sacks, I believe. 4 sacks? I don't know.
3 sacks.
There was a... Huh?
3 sacks for 19 yards.
Whatever. 2 of them went to Micah Parsons.
Sacks. Yep, 2 went to Micah Parsons. That's true. To put some other stats to this, because we at least still have to talk about something that the Jets did. Zach Wilson, definitely, he shit the bed. He shit the bed again. Let's put it like it is. 12 for 27, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. His 1 touchdown. Garrett Wilson, 2 receptions for 83 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, but if you take away his fucking...
That's as boomer bust as it gets right there.
If you take away his 68-yard touchdown, we held him to 1 catch for 15 yards. And he's supposed to be your number 1 wide receiver? Well, that's not good enough for our number 1 corner. Trayvon Diggs or Stephon Gilmore, take your pick.
Here's what's more telling, actually, on that factor. Garrett Wilson made 2 receptions for 83 yards. Do you know how many times he was targeted? 8. That's where you have to look at the numbers. Yeah, he made 2 receptions for 83 yards, but look at how many receptions he didn't get when he was targeted.
Compare that to CeeDee Lamb, who had a career day with 11 catches for 140-something yards.
143.
Yeah. CeeDee Lamb was... I was at work, and this guy, he's not a big football fan, but he likes watching football. And he goes, who's number 88 for the Cowboys? And I was like, that's CeeDee Lamb. He has one of the greatest NFL draft day moments of all time when he snatched his phone out of his girl's hand so she couldn't go through it. And he started laughing, and he goes, he seems like he's really good. And I was like, yeah, he is really good.
Just a little bit. Another thing I want to point out is the Jets' rushing offense.
What rushing offense?
Non-existent. Zach Wilson led the team with 36 rushing yards. Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook on 8 carries combined for 16 yards. That's it. Dallas's front 7 shut the Jets down like none other.
And our defensive secondary shut down their wide receivers like none other. We have a all-around amazing fucking team. to rein it back in and to be
Also,
completely
you had a
honest.
kicker that went 5 for 5 on field goals.
Fuck you, Brett Maher. To rein it back in a little bit, it's week 2. We have played 2 not so great teams, but the fact that we are dominating the way that we are,
We'll see
could
what
be a long
happens week
season.
5 when y'all play San Francisco.
Listen, I'm not sitting here saying we're going to go 17
Oh
and
my
0.
God! Wait. We need to do the math real quick. I think that week is the week that I'm gonna be out.
Good, let me cover it by myself because if Dallas loses, I'm just going to accidentally forget to cover that game. But Dallas isn't going to lose. Look at that. Look at that fucking win probability right there.
Shut up. All right. Moving on. You're done. You're cut off. All right. So the Commanders, I know you hate talking about them, but they get a win as well. Defeating the Broncos 35 to 33 in what honestly may have been game of the week.
Agreed.
It may have been game of the week. So imagine my surprise. I had already gone out, hit the road, and I was driving around making deliveries. And our group chat for the Fantasy Football League starts blowing up over this game. Both teams came to play, and they came to play hard.
But they came to play in opposite halves.
Exactly. So the Broncos actually dominated the first half. Russell Wilson was dicing apart the Washington secondary. Defense was shutting down Sam Howell and the Commanders' offense well into the second. They didn't even get going until it was like 3/4 of the way through the second. It was like 3-4 minutes left on the clock in the first half before they finally started getting going. Denver has certainly found something in Marvin Mims. Snagged a pair of catches, each was over 50 yards, got his first career touchdown, as well as, and this is another thing to keep attention of, he had a 45-yard punt return in there as well. So he's a dual threat. Sam Howell still connected with Scary Terry in the third, and what may have been the catch of the week to tie up the score in the third. And then a pair of Brian Robinson touchdowns put the Commanders firmly in control of this game. Robinson has clearly emerged as the RB1 in that backfield and is really becoming the RB1 that everyone made him out to be. And it's amazing what happens when a teenager doesn't carjack you and shoot you in the leg.
Got shot in the butt.
I think it was his thigh meat. Either way.
Continue.
Either way. Game comes down to a miracle Hail Mary pass from Russell Wilson as time expires. It bounced off the hands of multiple defenders before landing in the hands of Brandon Johnson in the end zone for his second touchdown of the day. 2-point conversion would have sent this game into overtime, but Wilson failed to connect with Cortland Center on a pass that many people will be debating all week should have been called for pass interference or not. Dramatic ending, game of the weekend. Commanders are somehow hanging with the rest of the NFC East at 2-0. Except you, Giants.
So, yeah, sorry, Giants. It was pass interference.
It was definitely pass interference.
But it wasn't pass interference because it didn't get called. And had the Denver defense showed up ready to play the way they played last year or even in week 1, you don't find yourself in that situation that late in the game.
Exactly.
It bothers me so much when people point to one moment of costing somebody the game when it's at the end of the game. Because if you had done a bunch of little moments earlier in the game, you're not in that situation that late. Washington looked pretty decent. I'm not going to sit here and say they look good because I don't think that they did. But they looked decent. But again, their 2-0 is against 2 pretty mediocre bottom-of-the-barrel teams. And, I mean, let's see them play some tougher competition. Shocked that the Broncos offense was able to put up 33 points.
Also, on that note, because I forgot to write this down as well, 7 sacks against Russell Wilson.
And when you're a mobile quarterback, I think Russell's kind of lost a step since he was his younger years in Seattle. But when you're a mobile quarterback,
he did lead the team in rushing this week too.
But when you're trying to scramble around and make plays happen, you're going to take a lot of sacks, so it can be a little deceiving. I think at one point Russell Wilson was something absurd, like 4 of 6 for like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. I was like, God damn! But I'm going to go on record. I think Russell Wilson is washed.
I think so too. I've been said that. Come on now. Yeah. I said that last year when he was fucking around.
I think he's washed.
All right. How about our Sunday night game?
Sunday night primetime game. Dolphins visiting New England and the Patriots with this really awesome new lighthouse that they had built. I'm only talking about it because the commentators talked about it 173 times throughout the entire broadcast. And they had Kenny Chesney come and bang their drum. It was fucking weird. But about the game, I really thought that Miami was going to run away with this one, especially when it was 17-3 early in the game. But a blocked field goal and an interception got New England right back in it. And that's, momentum shifts. That's exactly what teams need, is sparks sometimes. But that block, I want to talk about it. We typically don't discuss individual plays, but this one was a thing of fucking beauty. Essentially, did you watch this game?
No, I missed it. I was on the road.
So essentially, when you're on field goal block and there's the guy who's all the way on the end, right? He's all the way at the end on the defensive side. He's all the way on the left.
Yeah.
The Patriots pull him off, wave him to the sideline, right? He gets halfway to the sideline and stops. Coach gives him a signal, essentially sending a defensive player in motion. He runs back parallel to the line of scrimmage towards the field goal kick. They snap the ball, and he curves inside, runs by completely untouched. He almost ran too fast and missed the block because he was so untouched. It was a beautiful thing. I would not be surprised if we start seeing more of it in the NFL because it worked so perfectly. But that's Bill Belichick. Big brain, really good at football, really smart. Well, he might not be good at football. He's smart at football, and he knows football. But ultimately, it ended up not being enough, as Miami does end up winning the game. The Patriots fall to 0-2 for the first time since 2001. They went on to begin their dynasty at that year's Super Bowl. So 0-2 is kind of scary for us fans because we're tired of seeing New England win Super Bowls.
I don't think we're in risk of that right now, though.
I don't think we are either. Tua, you said it last week. We clown him when he's hurt, but man, that guy, he's a good quarterback, man. He's a good quarterback, and I know a lot of people give him hell because his ball, he doesn't throw a good-looking ball, but he's a left-handed quarterback. Left-handed quarterbacks always have a weird release because we're so used to seeing right-handed quarterbacks. But after the game, they interviewed Tyreek Hill in the locker room, and he said it felt great to get a road win in New England, especially since they have, quote, the worst fans in the world. Said that they were shouting things at him, and they said some nasty things that Tyreek wouldn't say in church, that's for sure.
That sounds like Boston fans.
It does sound like Boston fans. Again, the score is a little misrepresented in this one. Miami was in control most of the game. New England clawed to have a comeback similar to what they did against Philly. If you're a New England fan, you want to see your offense come out of the gate swinging, not waiting until they're against the ropes and trying to swing back. The floor is yours. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I'm going to keep my mouth shut until you're done.
It's time. We have to do it. I have to rip the Band-Aid off. Our first Monday night game of the doubleheader. The Saints defeating my Carolina Panthers 20-17. This is week 2 of the Bryce Young experiment. Bryce Young looks like a scared kid on that fucking field, surrounded by so many people bigger and more mature than himself. He doesn't look like he's moving in the pocket. He looks like he's just trying to escape unharmed. At one point in the fourth, he got pulled from the game from a couple plays, comes back out, and makes a 26-yard scramble where it looked more than anything like he just panic ran. And then when he got to the secondary, he saw the 2 defenders and just collapsed on the ground. I was laughing my ass off watching the way that he hit the ground. I was in tears watching this. He collapsed in front of them like he was a baby deer avoiding the highway. There was a point where he kept trying to force a pass into Jonathan Mingo, even when Mingo was under triple coverage. It was obvious he was staring him down. It made it easy for the defense to just keep blocking it out of the way. Mingo finished with 3 catches on 8 targets, 26 yards. That was it. He spent way too much time during that. I think it was like the third quarter where he was just staring Mingo down. He's like, no, I'm going to get this pass to you. We also said last week that we've really loved Hayden Hurst in this scheme. They didn't get Hayden Hurst involved in the passing game until late in the fourth quarter. I don't know if that's Bryce Young's fault or Thomas Brown's on the offensive coordinator for calling the offensive plays, but you knew you had something there with Hayden Hurst. Why didn't you use it? Finally gets a touchdown at the end of the game. It was a 3-yard pylon touch by Adam Thielen. They go for the 2-point conversion, and again, it looked like Bryce Young was panicking out there when he threw it to Thielen at the last second. And he was lucky he had 2 receivers in the same area. Got sacked 4 times. He lost the ball on one of them, was a strip sack, got recovered by the Saints defense. He narrowly escaped a second strip sack by it being called back by a penalty. He played like a dude that claims he's good at Madden, but gets stomped by anyone that understands defensive mechanics. He looked more like the starting quarterback of the Little Giants. He looked more shook than the collective amount of ass in Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. 2 weeks in, this Bryce Young experiment is looking like a big fucking mistake.
I know you still have the rest of the game to cover. I think that as a fan, you're being a little harsh, being a little angry. I get it. You're 0-2. Doesn't look good. Rest of the NFC South doing pretty good. You guys, not so much. Bryce Young, definitely the worst of the 3 rookie quarterbacks in the NFL as of 2 games in. He also doesn't have any weapons. Jonathan Mingo is not a wide receiver 1.
Neither is Thielen, and Shark was non-existent tonight.
So, but Bryce, you guys might have fucked up. All
right. I'm done shitting on Bryce Young for a moment. Let's talk about the rest of this game. Defensive game on both sides of the ball. Like, honestly, like, legitimately, this was a shutdown game on both sides. Derek Carr also ate 4 sacks, so he wasn't alone. He had an interception. Frankie Louvu had a 2-sack night. So, again, like, the Panthers do still have something going on offense. The Panthers do still have something going for defense. Unfortunately, though, that also comes at a cost. We lost Shaq Thompson, carted off the field with what's being called a significant ankle injury. His foot was not supposed to bend that way. It just did not look good. On the other side of the ball, Jamal Williams exited the game with a hamstring injury. And this ended up paving the way for third-year back Tony Jones to score his first 2 career touchdowns while splitting time with the ever-unpredictable Taysom Hill. Not bad for a guy that just got called up from the practice squad this week. Miles Sanders continues to disappoint me. Again, he's the king of maybe picking up 3 or 4 yards at a time, and he's not good for much else besides that. One bright spot for the Panthers, however, has been Eddie Pinheiro. We're only 2 years removed from the great kicker hunt of 2021, where we kept switching out kickers like every other week. And he's been a steady producer going back to last season. 3 more field goals tonight. 2 of those came from behind 50 yards. He's on a streak of 22 consecutive made field goals. That's at least something. If we're not going to have an offense that can push into the red zone, I'm glad we have a kicker that can hit from 50 out pretty accurately.
Agreed.
Late game rally by Adam Thielen was enough to bring the game to within 3, but failure to recover the onside kick meant that we walk away from this game at 0-2, while the rest of the division points and laughs at 2-0.
Adam Thielen is a good veteran wide receiver, but like you said, he's not a wide receiver 1. Miles Sanders, I think he was more a product of the team he was playing for in Philly versus being the team being the actual runner that people thought he was.
And
Thompson.
Real quick on that note, though, let me point out as well that I've always been low on all Philadelphia running backs since Darren Westbrook because of the fact that they tend to be a timeshare, and it's a lot of people that just fit the scheme long enough to at least get the passing game going.
Brian Westbrook, but
did I said Darren Westbrook. I meant Darren Sproles.
Great dude, love that guy. But the unpredictable Taysom Hill. What do you mean unpredictable? He's a tight end who doesn't catch passes, that runs the ball and occasionally throws it.
Because he did all of those things tonight.
He did not catch a pass. He ran the ball and he had a couple passing yards. It's insane. Derek Carr is Derek Carr. However, right before we went on, I told you an interesting stat that some of these people might enjoy as well. Through their first 9 NFL seasons, Derek Carr has the 4th most passing yards, and the only quarterbacks in front of him are Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, and Matt Ryan.
Again, I've never been low. I've always been high on Derek Carr, and I always make fun of the fact that you look like him. So
I do not look like Derek Carr.
Get rid of your beard, and you look like Derek Carr.
First of all, I don't have a chin. This is what happened.
Yeah, I know.
This is the way.
I know.
But no, Derek Carr is just emo Kirk Cousins. He's Kirk Cousins in eye black. That's all he is. I'm sorry, Dick. Panthers suck. You guys aren't good.
I said it last week even. This is going to be a rebuilding season. This is going to be we need to figure out what we have with Bryce Young, and the expectations are low this season. So, yes, we know we suck. It just sucks more when we thought the entire division was going to suck, and now everybody else is laughing at 2-0. Not to mention, as well, our 2 losses already this season are both coming to divisional rivals.
Yeah, that
stings as well.
That's tough. The Steelers defeated the Browns 26-22. We opened the game with a Deshaun Watson pick 6, 9 seconds into the game. This was the first pick 6 to open a game since 2018. We're looking at you, Sam Darnold. The Cleveland offense had a nice rebound drive right after the initial pick 6, driving down the field to get a field goal. Those defenses were feasting tonight. Browns ended up picking off Kenny Pickett. Then we got a missed field goal. So it was not a really clean start from either team. Sloppiness continued as Watson goes for a sneak on 4th down, but fumbled. The very next play, the Steelers throw a pass, it's caught, then fumbled, picked up by the Browns, who then fumble it themselves, but they fumbled it forward, gaining more yards, and it goes out of bounds.
You've already lost me on that.
Exactly. Then we had another devastating injury to the running back rooms. Nick Chubb injured on what looked like a routine play. Then Joe Buck says that they're not going to show it. Aikman then goes, yes, it's as bad as you can imagine. And right as Aikman's saying that, you hear the entire Act You Sure It's Heinz Field stadium go, oh!
They watched the replay.
Hearing 70,000 people scream, oh, at one time, you know it was bad. I then saw the video. Somebody shared it on Twitter, and I saw it in slow motion. You know how your knee bends like forward?
Mm-hmm. His knee
was bending backwards. It was bending backwards
a little bit.
Maybe they'll pick up Cam Akers.
I hear he's looking for a team.
He ain't doing shit for the Rams. After Chubb is carted off the field, we finally got a little bit of offensive firepower. We had a 71-yard touchdown pass to NFL young boy George Pickens. I just wanted to fit in with you kids. I don't know who an NBA young boy is. Don't hate me. TJ Watt is now leading the Pittsburgh. What?
Bad move. Just go. Keep going.
TJ Watt is now leading the Pittsburgh Steelers all time in sacks with 81.5 for his career, passing James Harrison.
I'm pretty sure he did it in less seasons.
He had to have. James Harrison was there forever. The Browns kind of fell apart once Nick Chubb went out of the game, only averaging 2 yards per play once Nick Chubb got out. They were averaging 6 yards before he got hurt. Then right as soon as I wrote that note out, Jerome Ford breaks out a 69-yard touchdown run, getting tackled at the 1. It looked like that big run by Ford is what the Browns needed because the offense started to move the ball. But then the drive stalls. That's just a continuing theme here. Both teams would put together a good-looking drive, but then crumble right around midfield. Another Deshaun Watson fumble led to a TJ Watt touchdown for the Steelers to take the lead back. His first defensive touchdown in his career. So somehow TJ Watt broke the all-time sack record in Pittsburgh before scoring a defensive touchdown.
That's weird.
Mind blown.
But at the same time, a hell of a game for him.
Absolutely. Pittsburgh sacked Deshaun 6 times. And then there was another drive that just kind of petered out around the 50 when the Browns were trying to go back and take the lead. There was some jersey pulling on Browns wide receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones by cornerback Joey Porter Jr., but the flag was not called. Especially when they needed it the most, the Browns couldn't make it happen. Fans are probably going to bitch about the no call, just like they are going to with the Denver game. But the Browns had multiple opportunities to win this game, and they just flat out didn't do it.
I caught the end of that game after the end of, obviously, the Panthers game. And, I mean, watching the end, knowing already, first off, Nick Chubb going out, there goes my fantasy season. Like, we wish him quick healing. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. They've already confirmed that. But, yeah, that's I already lost Aaron Jones for at least the week, and now I've lost Nick Chubb. There goes my 2 top running backs. Not only is my team doing bad, my fantasy team is doing bad, too. So, speaking of fantasy...
well, hang on. Before we get into that, I want to point out, during the offseason, we reported about a bunch of NFL running backs having a Zoom call meeting together, talking about what they can do to generate a fair pay scale for running backs. Two of those people on that Zoom call were Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley. Both of them are now out. This is a devastating look to the whole pay NFL running backs the money they deserve, because let's say Saquon, didn't work out that deal that was the same exact amount as the franchise tag, and they paid him some crazy contract. Now he's injured. Nick Chubb, he's already had a knee injury in the past. He re-injured that same knee tonight, and he's out for the season.
Saquon's got a history of injuries.
And I'm all for running backs getting paid. I really, truly think that they should. But, this is a devastating blow. It's a devastating... This gives the owners more fuel to their fire.
This is on top of all the running back injuries that we got last week, like J.K. Dobbin, Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler. So many running backs have already gone down. So many star running backs have already gone down this early by week 2, that it's changing the landscape of the running back market, especially, like you pointed out, it was already being scrutinized going into this season, and now it's going to be scrutinized even harder. You're right. It's going to be really difficult for running backs to maintain any sort of hold on that, unless your name is Christian McCaffrey,
who has a history with injuries
as well.
That brings us to my favorite segment of the week, Dick's Picks.
It's time for a couple dick picks, which is hilarious because our Google Doc keeps trying to autocorrect it to actual dick pic. So hilarious. So I'm going to go through a couple of these. Surprisingly, Ravens running back Gus Edwards is available in our league and is surprisingly only rostered in 32% of leagues. This is somebody that is very much an RB1. So we're talking all these injuries to running backs. There's somebody to keep your eye on. I know I've traditionally been low on Ravens running backs because of injuries, but like I said last week, we've gotten the injury issue out the way.
Yeah. And we had Justice Hill on this list last week, so.
I mean, he didn't put up much this week, but again, it's going to be a timeshare between him and Gus Edwards at this point. Vikings wide receiver KJ Osborne, you mentioned that earlier, how that's a great three-headed passing attack. We've already talked about how high we are on Jay Jettas and how high we are on Jordan Addison. KJ Osborne has still been that other, he moved up into the wide receiver 2 when Adam Thielen left this year. So this is an opportunity for him to shine as well. I've always liked him in that Minnesota offense. If Kirk Cousins can keep that ball moving the right way, then KJ Osborne will poised to be breaked out. At least have a couple good weeks this season.
I agree.
Patriots tight end Hunter Henry. Now you put another tight end up here. Colts tight end Kylan Granson, 2%. Currently considered the. Yeah, I'm not sold on that
he's
one.
Less. No, he's. So first, Patriots tight end Hunter Henry. I'm not sold on him because the Patriots still have Mike Gesicki. I put Colts tight end Kylan Granson. He's only rostered in 0.2% of ESPN fantasy leagues. Going into this week, he was the 14th best tight end in ESPN fantasy, and he had already had a touchdown by the time I came across his name. He might not be getting a lot of targets, but if he's going to be a safety blanket in the red zone, he might be good for at least a catch and a touchdown, which is 7 points in our league. And from the tight end position, where it's Travis Kelce, TJ Hawkinson, and then everybody else, he's not a bad choice.
All right, whatever. But I would hitch my wagon to Hunter Henry because, again, he was getting those large targets. This is an offense that is that has historically been very good to the tight end position, especially even in 2 tight end schemes. So yeah, they can have Gesicki, but Hunter Henry also has been a very well proven name, arguably more so than Gesicki, and I think that he can continue to really be a good tight end passing option for Mac Jones if he's going to continue to play as well as he has been this year. You put Lions receiver Josh Reynolds.
Yes.
I
had 2 pretty solid games against the Chiefs and then against the Seahawks. But he's putting up points, man. And it's clear that Amon-Ra is their number one,
Mm-hmm.
and until Jamison Williams comes back from his suspension, they're looking for a number two.
That's true. And Josh Reynolds has a lot of experience with being that number. He was number two receiver for a hot minute in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So he has experience. He has the ability to break out. Rostered right now in only 4.4% of ESPN leagues. If you're really like desperate for some wide receiver depth, you could go worse directions.
Yep.
Better directions would be Broncos receiver Marvin Mims Jr. Again, we mentioned him having his breakout game. Yes, it was only 2 catches, but both of those catches went for 50 yards. And again, he has the ability to be explosive as a punt returner and a kick returner. So I wouldn't necessarily say that he's an immediate pickup, but he's definitely somebody to keep your eye on.
I
As
agree with that. I agree with that because he is still in a wide receiver room that has Cortland Sutton and Jerry Judy. So,
But Jerry
I
Judy
wouldn't
did not really perform all that well this week.
still coming. He's coming back from an injury. I'm sure he'll get it together at some point. But I agree. I wouldn't rush to pick up Marvin Mims. But yeah, I like how you described it. Keep an eye on him.
Yeah, keep him on your watch list for sure. And then to finish this out, we have 3 running backs that are all recommendations for the same reason, and that is because they are behind running backs that got hurt this week. Starting off, of course, Giants running back Matt Breida, rostered right now in 1.1% of leagues. He stands to benefit from an injured Saquon Barkley. He's the next man up in that running back room. He's been a long time Giant. He has plenty of experience with that playbook. Again, rostered right now in only 1.1% of leagues. Great option for a pickup. The Browns running back Jerome Ford, who of course had to come in tonight for Nick Chubb,
Had a great game.
had a great game after that. 9.1% rostered in ESPN. And then the other one I mentioned earlier, Saints running back Tony Jones Jr., coming in for Jamal Williams. This guy, this is already a very thin running back room, having already lost Alvin Kamara to suspension. You've got Jamal Williams out now. Not a lot. You have Taysom Hill, who is just, again, unpredictable. If he continues, he had a really good game after Williams went out. I'd stand to argue that he may be holding on to that RB1 position at least until any of them come back, which could be like, if depending on the severity of this Jamal Williams hamstring injury, he may have to be your instant pickup for the next 2-3 weeks.
So here's my thing. I think out of those 3 that you just mentioned, Jerome Ford is the best one to get because he proved himself tonight that the Browns believe. He proved that the Browns believe in him. He proved that he had that 69-yard run. I believe he got a touchdown as well. I could be wrong on that, but the Browns showed us that they believe in Jerome Ford. The one I like the least is the Saints with Jones Jr. The reason being is because I think Jones Jr. will only be a solid pickup for 1 week. Because starting in week 4, Alvin Kamara comes back from injury or from suspension.
I thought it was week 6.
He was only suspended 3 games.
Oh shit! All right, then yeah. Then he's again,
So,
like, he's gonna be like a
if you
one.
need-
If he's the guy that you need as a handcuff, if you've got either Jamal Williams or Alvin Kamara, and you need to hold out for the next week.
Correct. And another guy who's not on our list, but I'm again not saying to rush out and get him because he's not on a team. But you got to be absolutely crazy if you think people aren't calling Leonard Fournette tonight.
Oh, that's a really good point. Actually, I hadn't even thought about that.
I would not be shocked if by the start of next week's episode we're talking about what team signed Leonard Fournette.
I wouldn't be surprised. One that I actually took off the notes because it happened at the very end, beginning of the week for us, right after the games last week. Carolina actually signed Tariq Cohen to the practice squad. Tariq Cohen, of course, had a couple good years in Chicago. He's very explosive. Again, if things don't work out with Miles Sanders, might have to start looking at the next man up.
Yeah. Oh, and I mentioned it last week. I said I'd be curious to see the pickup for certain players, and one we named was Puka Nacua, who was only rostered in 2% of leagues last year. He is now rostered in 74% of ESPN leagues.
Yeah, everyone rushed to pick him up, and he made it worth it this week.
Yep. That does it. That does it for our main NFL stories. Let's get to the Brahma Bull.
Real quick, I love how we said that we were going to keep this to under an hour and a half, and we're already at an hour and a half.
Okay, we'll be done in 15 minutes with this.
You say that. Anyways, yeah. So we got The Rock return on SmackDown.
And on Pat McAfee.
And on Pat McAfee. So let's start out this insane day that they had on Friday.
Chronological order.
So Rock appears on Pat McAfee show, does an hour-long interview.
Great interview.
Yeah, I have to agree. And breaks the news to everybody and basically says, hey, because Pat asks him, like, hey, how close were we to getting you and Roman at WrestleMania? And Rock came out and said, he's just like, there was a handshake deal in place. We just couldn't get the fine details down. So we decided to put a pin on things. And it's like, we were that close to getting Rock Roman this year.
And what's even crazier is he said that handshake deal happened in early 2021.
Which is maddening when you think about it.
The Rock said, he's like, I'm not worried about the injuries because we all get injured. You sign up for it when you're a WWE superstar. He goes, I'm not worried about the schedule because I can control most of my schedule. He goes, I'm more worried about giving the fans something they have never seen before. And he said that's what they couldn't figure out, was the aspect of it of Rock versus Roman and something they had never seen. So they said, like you said, to put a pin in it.
Now, I also want to point out one of the other things that he said during that interview was that he recognized how hot Cody was at the time, and he's like, no, this is Cody's moment. We don't need to take away from this. We can, since we're already putting a pin on things, let that story run its course. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and push the stars that are at the top of the company right now. We can worry about coming back to me when we have the time.
Yep.
Well, I think the timing is just a little bit too suspicious, and we'll get to that because then later in the night,
Pat McAfee's show took place in Colorado because they were there for the Colorado State game.
Yeah, we should point that out.
That night's SmackDown took place in Denver. And how did SmackDown open?
It opens with a surprise Pat McAfee appearance. And
let's go.
And he comes out. He's cutting himself a little promo, talking about how he's like, I missed the fans. I needed to come out, say hi. This is the People Show and whatnot. Austin Theory comes out because, of course, he does, and starts talking about why Pat decides to come back on my show this, my show that. To which Pat goes, "Excuse me, this isn't your show, but it's the People's Show."
And who better to come out than the People's Champion? If you smell what The Rock is cooking, Dwayne The Rock Johnson back on SmackDown. Chills.
Starts getting into a promo battle with Austin Theory, who, Austin Theory getting a rub from the greats, and he held his own very well in that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can effectively hit The Rock with his own catchphrases.
I have something I want to say about that when you're done.
No, go ahead.
So, and I know you're going to cringe a little bit, but I saw something on Reddit, and I can't get it out of my head. I know. But I think you'll like this. Austin Theory gets a character change, similar to what we saw with Randy Orton's Legend Killer. But Austin Theory becomes the Attitude Killer and starts taking off the Attitude Era legends. John Cena, The Rock, Edge. You
just named 2 Ruthless Aggression Era stars.
Whatever. Whatever. I'm just saying, there's a lot of people that are coming up close to retirement, and you could have Austin Theory retire him, and it would... Wait, 2? Edge and The Rock are both Attitude Era.
Edge is more Ruthless Aggression Era.
He started in the Attitude Era.
He started in the Attitude Era, but he didn't really come into his own until the Ruthless Aggression Era when he was a solo champion. The majority of the Attitude Era he spent in a tag team or a stable.
He already beat John Cena, and certainly The Rock doesn't mind working with him, or else he wouldn't have gone out there and had that little promo off.
Also true. Now, with that being said, I want to address something. The timing is a little bit too perfect. Now, as we know, Cena came back already, and he's going to be back for several weeks because, and it's largely been like it's very obvious that it's because of the writer's strike in Hollywood.
100%. That's the reason.
100%.
There's literally no other reason.
100%. That's the reason Rock's back right now too.
Yep. 10,000%. Agreed.
He's got time to kill. Why not? Now, let's put the pieces together here. Rock openly talked about the plans to do the match versus Roman at Mania 39, and they said they had to put a pin in it. Roman is not scheduled for a title defense until early November. Do you know what's early November?
Crown Jewel.
A Saudi show. And what do the Saudis love to do? Throw money at everybody to get the biggest names possible and get the biggest matches. They said they wanted something unprecedented. What's more unprecedented than Rock Roman in Saudi?
I hear you. I hear you. But I got two things. Saudi's got dumb money, right? Mm-hmm. Dumb money.
Okay.
I think, and I wouldn't mind seeing this either. I wouldn't mind seeing The Rock and John Cena versus Roman and Solo in a tag match, which then could set up to Tribal Combat Night 1, WrestleMania 40, Rock versus Roman, which then leads to Cody finishing the story, Cody Roman Night 2.
That's a
had you in the first half.
That's a you had me in the first half, not gonna lie. You also had me well into the second half as well, because there is actually discussion right now that they want to do a program between John Cena and Solo. That is a package that's being discussed backstage.
Yeah, because Solo shared a picture of his stare down on John Cena versus Maga stare down on John Cena. And it looked real similar, man.
I think it would be a really good option, especially because like they can't do Roman Cena. They've done that enough times already. That you really can't afford to do that. It's got to, plus the fact that it's got to be Rock Roman at this point. But I think yeah, it would just be too much. Like I can see them doing that tag match. I can. But once you start getting into the whole like tribal combat being at Mania and whatnot, you're starting to get a little bit too convoluted there. I like the idea of a tag match if they're worried about people getting injured, but I would be less surprised if we were getting Rock Roman.
I don't care if we get it at Saudi. I just want to see it.
Hell, we'll get Cena Solo on the same show maybe.
Probably. Speaking of convoluted, PWI came out with their top 500.
Which is always a great source of debate every year.
It makes no fucking sense. I don't know why we're covering it. They had LA Knight listed at 130 and Tyrus at fucking 54. It doesn't make sense.
Because it's based off of kayfabe, because kayfabe success as well. And Tyrus spent the majority of the 2023 like grading year.
And if it's off kayfabe, then 1 and 2 need to be switched.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Why don't you run us through?
No, I agree with that.
Why don't you run us through the top 10, starting at 10, and then tell me why you disagree with?
Coming in at number 10 is Cody, which is
appropriate.
Yeah, I can agree with that. At number 9, we have Josh Alexander, who of course spent the majority of that grade. So again, of course, the grading year is July 1st to June 30th. Josh Alexander spent a vast majority of that as the Impact champion. Only lost his title because of an injury. Immediately came back in and got right back into the title picture. So a solid pick for number 9. Orange Cassidy at number 8. We have long praised how well he did with that international championship run. 7, Okada. Now, I'm shocked Okada is the highest ranking New Japan representative when he spent the majority of that year in the background. Well, not necessarily in the background. He was in the trios. He was in the trios discussion for that majority of that year. Sonata being champ for most of that. Yeah, Okada's still Okada, but like
Nada was 11.
Sonata was 11. Okay, but
No.
again, like Okada over Sonata. Are we sure about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. 6 MJF. I
Little
like it.
low. Little low in my opinion.
Little low. I can agree with that.
I wouldn't be mad if 3 and 6 were flipped.
I I think if 6 and 5 were flipped. So 5 was Vikingo, El Hijo del Vikingo, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact of his accomplishments in Mexico, um,
Yeah,
and how
wasn't
long
he on
he
the
was.
top 10 last year?
I believe so. Yeah. But I mean, I'm not. I would never speak ill about Vikingo, but I do believe that 5 is a little high for him.
He
Um,
was 8. He was 8 last year.
okay.
That's right, because Jonathan Gresham was 10, and he used that in an
I
argument.
forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot about that shit.
Number
Um,
4, well
Number
deserved.
4, Gunther, very well deserved, very well. Number 3, Mox. I like that actually. You say that it should be MJF over Mox, but let's be real, Mox was far more instrumental in things,
Mox bleeds for that company.
literally. Number 2, Roman. Number 1, Seth. First
Could have
off,
flipped him.
first
Could have
off,
flipped him.
the top 3 are the Shield.
Yeah, I know. I love
That's the beautiful part. Then they actually advertise that on the cover of the magazine too. It's like the Shield reigns supreme. Um, I would make the argument that Seth does deserve to be above Roman because Roman
that.
still hasn't defeated Seth.
I thought you were going to go with the argument that Seth is the defending champ, whereas Roman really isn't.
That too, yeah. The fact that he is an actual like fighting champion, whereas Roman's just been like, don't get me wrong, like there's still no taking away from Roman's reign, pun intended, but it's at that point we've already talked about how stale this bloodline story has gotten and how it's really starting, like he's broken 1,000 days. Now we just need things to be done and over with.
Oh,
So,
we got 7 more. We got 7 more months until it's figured out, bud. So buckle up. And again, as always, like PWI is just fucking two. I believe it's only 2 people's opinions.
a handful of people maybe making those
Right.
decisions.
I give him credit because I could sit here for the next 8 hours and probably couldn't even name 500 wrestlers ever.
I mean, if you ever want to feel like this overwhelming feeling of who, look at the bottom of the list.
Yep.
You'll find, and
There
then
was
you'll find
one-
some names in there that'll be like, wait, why are they so low?
There's one name in there that I don't know anything about this person, but I want to.
Who?
Cheeseburger.
You don't know about Cheeseburger?
I don't know about Cheeseburger.
Cheeseburger is a legend. He's a Ring of Honor legend.
I don't know nothing about Cheeseburger.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to give you this. I'm gonna have to take you to school about Cheeseburger later.
All right.
Let's talk about this entire women's division in WWE right now because there's one big name that we need to talk about more than anything that has dominated the headlines, and that's Jade Cargill. Her contract is reportedly up with AEW. She finished out the last of her dates. Finished it out on Rampage with a unsuccessful rematch against Chris Statlander for the TBS Championship. After the match, hugs her, bows to the crowd, walks out. They have made no secret about her jumping ship to WWE.
None.
Now,
No secret.
this is particularly interesting because if you'll remember, right at the end of the episode last week, we had gotten the breaking news that Nia Jax appears at the end of Raw, attacks Rhea and Raquel, the states that she's back. Now, the report went out while we were recording last week that Nia Jax had been reportedly rehired about a month prior, and that the word internally was that the hiring freeze is officially over. This opens the door to so many people, but most importantly, Jade Cargill, who just finished out this contract and apparently nobody's saying anything about a no compete, so she could easily show up at any moment.
Yeah.
Speaking
Her
of Nia,
contract
just to
expired.
say what?
if her contract just expired, can't she technically show? She could have showed up tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of the questions because you've got Becky Lynch doing an open challenge for the NXT Women's title after which again she won from Tiffany Stratton last week as well. That was happening while that happened while we were gone. We all saw it was coming. We all knew it was happening.
Right.
But you've got Becky out here doing open challenges. A lot of people were saying how crazy would it be if Jade Cargill shows up and then just takes that title from her. Nothing.
What's Jade Cargill doing in the impact zone, Maggle?
Speaking of Nia, though, while we're just talking about how she's back as well, I know, but just to mention it, she shows up and interrupts the tag team match between Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark versus Chelsea Green and Piper Niven, and she just takes all four of them out. So the whole idea right now is that you've got Nia running through the entire women's division just because she can.
Reason. Right.
Again, like you said last week, do we really need more injuries?
No, but WWE gonna WWE, I guess.
That's fair. So that leads me to the question: if Jade Cargill's coming in, what brand does she best fit on? Because you've got Nia running roughshod on Raw right now, plus the fact that you're still telling Rhea's story. I wouldn't mind seeing Rhea versus Jade.
Me either.
I don't think she goes to SmackDown just because their women's division is kind of already like dealing with their own stuff right now. With the whole EO storyline, you've got Asuka and Charlotte and so many other big names that are already competing in that division. I think she does. I don't think she starts there. The obvious fit does feel like NXT, but with Becky there right now, how do you move Jade in there? Unless you build Jade, the only way I can think of it is if you send Jade to NXT, Becky defends NXT for a little bit, puts some prestige on the title, and then puts Jade over once Jade's got a couple wins under her belt.
I could see that, but if I were to be completely honest, out of the 3 title holders right now, the weakest champ is EO.
I feel like that's only because they built her that way because of the Money in the Bank. But again, do you really see Jade coming into that packed women's division right now?
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Jade go to SmackDown and start at the bottom and working her way up, because then that means we could get Jade versus Asuka or Jade versus Charlotte, which I would love that.
They're going to save those for big money moments, and they're going to wait until they build her star first. That's why I say she doesn't start on SmackDown.
And I mean, I know Jade's kind of new to wrestling, but I also feel like she has transcended NXT.
I think not, only because that she would have to get into NXT just to make sure that she can get the feel for the WWE style. She does her time at the Performance Center. Now, and that's been a lot of discussion, is that like they could just bring her in and have her skip straight to the main roster. That is a very much possibility because of the fact that she is as good as she is. She has become as good as she is so quickly, and the fact that she just naturally fits the WWE style.
And I think that they would want to put her on the main roster to rub it in AEW's face.
I wouldn't go that far.
I do. I think because more people watch Raw and SmackDown than they watch NXT.
Yeah.
I'm hungry.
Are you? Is it time? We already had snack time earlier. So is it time for the leftovers?
It is time for the leftovers.
All right.
Josh Allen is now 0-5 in overtime games. He is now past David Carr for most losses without a win or tie in overtime by starting quarterback in NFL history.
I'm assuming in overtime games is what you meant by that. But yeah, Josh Allen, man, that is such a heartbreak.
If that was a Dak Prescott stat, it would be not the leftovers. It would be a main story because the national media hates the Cowboys.
That's also true. Fun fact for everybody, John Cena is now being back in the WWE. He has wrestled 20 matches in the past 2 years. Only 3 of those matches has been televised.
Could you imagine going to a random house show and just seeing John Cena pop up?
When it's less likely to happen on television?
Right.
Yeah.
Another fun fact, only 3 teams in NFL history have never started a rookie at quarterback in week 1. Can you guess them?
I can guess two, and that would be the Packers and the Steelers.
Neither of those are correct.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then.
One of them is the Minnesota Vikings. Never started a rookie quarterback in week 1.
I can't think of them ever getting a rookie, like drafting a rookie quarterback. So yeah,
Right. The next, the New York Giants.
that seems wrong.
I know, because of Eli, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
just
Eli didn't
feels
start.
wrong, but he didn't start there. So
Yeah. Well, he started. He just didn't start as a rookie in week 1.
yeah,
And then the last, Kansas City Chiefs.
actually, yeah, that adds up too.
Because Mahomes was behind Alex Smith.
Yep.
So, yeah, thought that was interesting.
All right. So ESPN and being part of the Disney company, we're getting a very special thing for the Jaguars game from London this season.
I'm hype.
Well, you're so hyped, then tell us about it.
The Jags are playing in London, and that means it's a 9:30 a.m. start time here. NFL has partnered with Disney to have the NFL game be broadcast from Andy's bedroom in Toy Story with all the players being animated. I can't wait.
It's gonna be the Jaguars versus the Falcons, I believe, week 5. I have problems with this. It's gonna be October 1st. Yeah, it'll be October 1st. I see what they're doing. I get it because yes, they've been trying to get more kids involved with football. Famously, of course, Patrick Starr telling Russell Wilson he shouldn't be cooking like that last season. That was a highlight for everyone.
Slime King, the MVP.
But I forget who it was that said this. I don't know if it was another YouTuber or if it was online or something or whatever, where I read it. It doesn't make sense because we live in a world post Toy Story 3 where the toys no longer live with Andy.
You're reaching. First of all,
it doesn't make sense. Plus, if you want to get more technical about the real problem I have with it, this is an obvious Toy Story cash grab, and you're beating a dead horse at this point.
my girlfriend came up to me and said she was excited and wanted to watch that football game. If this is what it takes to have to watch football with my girlfriend, I'm here for it.
I mean, if your son was with you, you would definitely be watching it with him.
100%.
100%.
Who covers that? Oh, that's a game you're going to cover.
Yeah, because it's both South teams.
Yep.
If it shakes out that we have extra games, you're taking that one.
Deal. Speaking of games.
Speaking of games.
I smoked you last week.
That you did. So let's go ahead and pull up. So I made sure we're not going to lose audio this time. Here's the results from this past weekend. I went 8-8. You went at 11-5. I whiffed on some of these picks so badly.
Yeah.
But
rough
again,
stretch there from the early games going into the late games.
But again, this was like all the ones that I lost were the ones that we didn't see coming. Like the Bears losing to the Buccaneers, the Jaguars losing to the Jaguars I did take as like a they could beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Taking the Packers over the Falcons seemed like a sure bet.
Yeah. Taking the Lions seemed like a sure bet. Taking the Chargers seemed like a sure bet.
After last week, the Browns seemed like a sure bet, but I mean that also has to do with Nick Chubb going down. So
correct.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to this week's games. Starting out with Thursday night, we have the Giants at the 49ers. I don't think I have to ask you.
No.
We're taking the Niners. Colts at Ravens.
I'm going Ravens. I don't think Big Tony's there yet.
Nope. Titans at Browns. Considering the injury to Nick Chubb, I'm going to give it to the Titans. Coming off of that hot win against the Chargers, I feel like they're going to carry that momentum in next week.
Give me the Browns to play hard for Nick Chubb.
Falcons at Lions. Oh,
Lions.
I don't know anymore. This Falcons team.
They can run the ball, but
We saw how easily Lions can, like, their defense can crumble.
Yeah, and again, if I don't expect Desmond Ridder to carve up the Lions the way that Geno Smith did.
You never know, though. I'm gonna stick with the Lions, though.
I'm taking the Lions.
Saints at Packers. I don't know.
Man, this is tough because we still don't know the status of Aaron Jones.
And we also don't know the status of Jamal Williams.
I'll take the Saints.
I too will take the Saints. I don't feel comfortable about it. Actually, no. I'll take the Packers.
Okay.
No way no way this Jacksonville.
Jags.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Jags.
Stroud's not there yet either. And like we said, the Texans, there's some hope, but
against a divisional rival, especially. Yeah. Broncos at Dolphins. Dolphins.
Miami's gonna fucking track meet their ass.
Fins up on that one.
Yep.
Chargers at Vikings. I like the Vikings, but do I really believe the Chargers are going to start 0-3?
That's the thing, dude. There's no way I'm going Chargers. But then again, like I said, 58 points, 0 turnovers, and they're 0-2, so I guess there is a way.
It's also Kirk Cousins at home on a Sunday afternoon.
After church.
Ooh. Give me the Vikings.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, I'm sticking with the team formerly from San Diego.
I don't feel comfortable voting. Actually, no, I do feel comfortable after that last week. Plus, there's no telling how long. Right now, there's also a report. There's no timetable for Austin Eckler's return. So
that's big.
That's big. Patriots at Jets. I'm gonna let you pick first on this one before I decide.
I think I'm gonna go Jets.
I think I'm gonna go Patriots.
I'm not confident with this pick though, but
I like the Jets, like the way they played this week. I mean, well, they played against Dallas though, so
pretty good team.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, give me the Jets. Bills at Commanders.
Yeah.
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 Course correction. Panthers at Seahawks. I hate to pick against my boys again.
I'm taking the Seahawks. I've lost faith in you guys.
I don't have faith in them this season at all. This is a no-brainer.
Yeah. If we lose this game.
If you guys lose this game.
I'll do something.
Shave your head.
Can't do that. Growing the hair out.
That's fair. Bears at Chiefs.
Chiefs. What?
This
next one's tough.
All right, yeah. Sunday night, Steelers at Raiders.
Can't believe that's a primetime game.
I can't believe it either. Especially because the Steelers are just coming off of a primetime game. I feel like they ride their momentum.
I'll take the Raiders.
All right.
For parity's sake.
I thought we said on week 1 we're not going to deal with parity.
Yeah, but I'm not confident in either one of those teams. So
yeah,
for this,
that's fair.
I'm okay with it.
Eagles
and I
have
a 2-game lead on you anyway. Fuck, man. I guess I gotta go Philly.
It feels wrong to go against Philly on this one, but at the same time, Baker's working out.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like Baker would love to go in there. And
give me one more week to be sold on Baker under center. And then Rams at Bengals.
Give me the Rams.
Give me the Rams.
I think the Cincinnati slide continues.
I think so too. How else are you gonna make room for all these new playoff teams we're getting this year? All right, well that does it for our picks. That's gonna do it for us this week. Oh my God, I thought we said we were gonna keep these things short. Oh, we can't keep doing this to ourselves.
No. 2:30 in the morning.
As always, every little bit of support helps the show out. So make sure you leave a like on this video, leave a subscribe, hit that subscribe button, leave your comments down below, and leave your expectations at the door. For Bobby Boomerang, I'm Dick Burns. We're going to call it a night. We'll see y'all next week, hopefully with less injuries. We'll see y'all later.